Hello and welcome back to CryptoCast. I am your host, James Burnie, and today we're discussing the latest developments in Switzerland, including the Bern Financial Services Agreement and what that means for firms which would like to operate across borders. Today's guest has 25 years of experience as an external advisor, general counsel, manager, and board member with leading firms in financial services, including in the banking, capital markets, funds, derivatives, commodities, and digital asset sectors. He has been involved in creating first in the world token structures, as well as first in the world financial products listed on exchanges in Switzerland and the EU. He now leads the gunnercooke Swiss practice, which is rapidly growing since being launched earlier this year. I'm delighted to be joined by, and good to see you again, Martin Liebi.
Hello, James. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Martin, just for people who haven't got to know you yet, can you go back with your background? How did you get into crypto and digital assets?
So I was young and needed the money. No, it's a long story. Obviously, crypto as an industry has been rapidly growing since like 15 years. I was on the topping since roughly 10 years, and at the time back, Switzerland was one of the very few places which a lot of activity has been going on, which is still the case, luckily. And so I got the great opportunity together with you and the rest of our team to build our international crypto network, which I think is at the moment and hopefully also in the future second to none. And it's my great pleasure to establish the Swiss practice and together with you solve a lot of problems for our clients in a great team.
And just, one of the things people regularly talk about is Switzerland, the context of crypto. Can you give a bit of background as kind of, where Switzerland is in terms of its approach towards crypto assets? What sorts of things are going on in Switzerland with respect to crypto assets? I think a lot of people heard about things like the crypto valley and the like. Can you give a bit of a flavour as to what's really going on the ground?
Yeah, so Switzerland is still going strong since it's had one of the pioneer roles in the industry. A lot of the foundations like Ethereum, Solana, and others are located in Switzerland. It has created a great ecosystem. As time has passed, obviously competition got fierce. At the moment, there's a couple of places around the globe which attract crypto companies. But Switzerland, with his kind of liberal approach and openness to new financial innovation, and also easiness of doing business, is still going strong. And in particular, with the latest kind of developments we're seeing on the geopolitical front, unfortunately, in the Middle East, but also Eastern Europe and other places of the world, the classic Swiss values like stability, neutrality, reliability, uh, protection of privacy have increased again and have become stronger again. So we see at the moment a lot of inflows from all around the world because comparatively speaking, Switzerland is a good place to do business. You have access to capital, you have access to good advisors, you have access to a good ecosystem, and also the quality of living is very good comparatively. So yeah, I mean, business is doing well, and hopefully also in the future. But I'm very confident because there will be a new regulation upcoming, which is very protective and very supportive of stablecoins. It's going to be very attractive new stablecoin regulation, which I think will globally attract a lot of stablecoin issuers. Is a light touch regulation still. It's not going to be, it's a little bit more regulation than at the moment. At the moment, there's not much except AML registration. But yeah, so this is all in the works and it's all upcoming. And we will have some news on how the regime will look like, I think, in the next 1 or 2 years.
And it'd be good, how have the Swiss gone about stablecoins? I think we can just explore slightly more, just because, in the EU, we've seen an approach of you have to have an e-money license, and they're becoming relatively expensive to get. The UK has taken more of an approach of it basically splits into almost like a investments type approach towards the back end assets. So you've got to hold it with kind of banks and that kind of approach, and the front end, which is going more along the lines of payment services, so kind of a blended approach. But again, each of those systems have been very highly regulated, effectively, with quite strict rules as to what they can and cannot do. Can you give flavors to the current thinking in Switzerland in terms of how it would like to regulate stablecoins?
Yeah, this is. I think on this one, the new proposal was a really good one, because how they think about it, about the assets which have been deposited for the stable coins, this is going to be off balance sheet. So they call it client assets, which will not be on balance sheet. So that means that a lot of the regulation you have in the banking system, you have in the EMI system, is all about protection of public deposits. Yeah. And this you will not have in Switzerland. So it's going to be much lighter on the reg capital, on the liquidity management requirements. There's still going to be a regulation, but it's more like a payment service provider, because they look at it more like a payment instrument than really kind of a public deposit, like, for example, in the EU or other places. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think the other thing, of course, Martin, I think we've been speaking quite a lot, is the Bern Financial Services Agreement. Quite a lot of people listening won't have any idea what that means. So can you sort of start by just sort of explaining what is the Bern Financial Services Agreement?
So the UK and Switzerland as being key European countries which are not part of the club, or not part of the club anymore, let's speak, but still obviously have big financial markets. Obviously, the UK probably still the most international financial hub in the world, and Switzerland is the largest offshore asset management jurisdiction, roughly managing 25% of all offshore assets, are big players, and they see common synergies, and that's why they have entered into, I think, a very great financial services agreement, which basically allows, if you're licensed in different areas, it can be banking, can be asset management. There's also about financial market infrastructure, even some insurance activities. But let's look at asset management, for example. If you're licensed as an asset manager in Switzerland or in the UK, you will be able to service actively qualified clients in the other jurisdiction by a very simple passporting process, which basically goes automatically by being licensed in your home jurisdiction. And then there's a simple kind of online registration process to basically get passport. I think it's very innovative. I get a lot of good feedback, in particular from banks also. Some banks, for example, say, oh, that's great. We can concentrate our investment banking, our corporate banking activities in London, which obviously is the place to be for that. And we can concentrate our asset management, private banking activities in Switzerland. And we don't have to have double structures in place. So yeah, I think it's a really great step forward, and could in particular also for UK based asset managers being very attractive. So for example, it gives you optionality to set up shop in Switzerland instead of London eventually, yeah, for certain activities. If it is easier, or if it's more suitable to your business case, for example. Yeah.
And if I was someone wanting to use this, so it sounds brilliant because you can get sort of enhanced access from one to the other. If I was looking to use it, what should I be thinking about? What should I be doing about to start it off effectively? Is it you simply just turn up and just go for it, or do you have to go through a process in order to be able to make benefit of the passporting type system?
Yeah, so first you have to get licensed in a home jurisdiction. Yeah, so let's take the example of the UK. So you need to get licensed with the FCA. But as soon as you're licensed with the FCA, there's basically, at least in the case of Switzerland, an online platform when you basically already are licensed. You just have to report that you want to do passporting into the UK under this financial services agreement. And then basically the Swiss regulator FINMA informs the FCA, and you get listed on a register in the UK, and you're basically good to go. There is certain local rules which still apply in the UK, in particular in the fund distribution space, like these marketing rules and certain consumer protection rules around it. But you basically can proactively, actively market and sell and also manage qualified clients, meaning typically you have a net asset value of 2 million pounds or 2 million Swiss francs, or you're a regulated entity or a certain management asset management structure. Um, and so it's very easy in handling. There have been orders. The Swiss had orders, for example, with the Germans, these kind of agreements, but this was much more clumsy because you actually had to apply for another license with the German regulator, or the Germans had to apply with the Swiss. So you don't have it here. So they made it very easy actually to really passport it easily and quickly into the other home jurisdiction or the other jurisdiction. So, and that's, I think, is the real benefit and the advantage of this one.
That's really interesting. Just switching the topic on something else, which we're seeing quite a lot of, which is quite a lot of particularly real world asset type structures are looking at something called the Swiss AMC. Now, again, this is something which might not be familiar to quite a lot of people listening. Can you give a bit about what is a Swiss AMC, effectively, or actively managed certificate?
Yeah, the Swiss AMC structure, so actively managed certificate or passively managed certificate, so kind of certificate structure or structure product, how they call it in continental Europe, is basically depending on whether you sell it to retail investors or not, or you're exceeding the certain thresholds, exemption thresholds, is a certificate, is a financial instrument which tracks one on one the underlying. And the underlying value can be many different things, can be crypto, can be gold, precious metals, can be real estate, can be almost anything which you can value. It's even possible to add some distribution features, and you basically are totally free to determine, because it's a purely contractual instrument, how this should look like, what the issuance, redemption conditions, and so forth should be. And depending on whether you sell this to retail or not, so if you only do this for professional investors, for example, it can just be issued by a simple uh, entity in Switzerland. You can tokenize it, you cannot tokenize it. You can manage it if you want to another entity, which does not necessarily have to be licensed if you structured this correctly. So it gives you a lot of freedom to create tokens in tokenized form or non-tokenized form, products which tracks real world assets. It's not the real ownership, but also real ownership structures, coins. Switzerland is very attractive, in particular for all kinds of metal coins, oil coins, and so forth. A lot of can be done because Switzerland is a very liberal tokenization ecosystem, so to speak. Yeah.
And just one follow-up question there, because again, there's a distinction between AMCs and asset management and funds, effectively. Can you give a little bit into kind of, what's the distinction in Switzerland between kind of an AMC and just a traditional fund type structure?
Yes. So in so an AMC basically is a debt instrument, which on the balance sheet, basically, if you issue the debt instrument, you get a certain amount, let's say, and then you buy an asset, and then basically the AMC tracks the value. So the AMC can go up or can go to zero. Yeah, this is the difference to a bond where you always have like a certain liability on the balance sheet. Now the difference to a collective investment scheme actually is that under Swiss law, only equity participations or funds. Yeah. So whenever I have like a company, a share of some sort, yeah, there's always the risk that you, when you pool assets, that this could be a fund. And obviously, fund is heavily regulated. Now, if you have like just these debt instruments, for example, an AMC, yeah, which is very fund-like. Basically, it's kind of, you can say, a hybrid debt, equity-like debt instrument that classifies not as a fund. Yeah, it's actually similar to in the EU where you have like the securitization exemption to the AFMD. Yeah, um, and that is just a debt instrument which would trigger certain prospectus requirements. For example, if you would sell this to retail investors, but that's it, and you would just have to do a prospectus. You can even do it EU compliant. You can passport it into the European Union. Through Liechtenstein, we do this very often. And then basically you have an EU compliant retail product, which can be fully tokenized, fully accepted in the entire European Union, and can be easily sold. In particular, if you do the distribution yourself, you're not relying on third parties, because that is basically not regulated. If you distribute your own products, this is an unregulated financial activity. Yeah. And that's kind of the key difference, that this is fully established practice from the regulator. They actually don't even issue no action letter requests anymore, because they say it's so clear that this is exempted, that they don't grant you that anymore. Yeah.
That's really interesting because I think we've seen how we quite a lot of people coming into this new type of structure. So I think it could be the dawn of the AMC quite soon, effectively, because we've seen a lot of clients coming and wanting that particular structure. Is there anything else which has kind of got you particularly excited about the future, either what's going on in Switzerland or in terms of what you're building within gunnercooke in Switzerland?
No, I'm absolutely excited to, together with you, obviously, as a key player of this new practice, and the other colleagues, to build this international legal network, gunnercooke. I think we have incredible good people. I think we are very innovative. It's a great joy to work with the team, and I think also for our client, it's a great experience in all aspects. And yeah, I'm very optimistic and looking forward to build this further out, and yeah, have soon a global network of leading experts in the field.
Sounds brilliant. Really looking forward to it. I'm afraid, Martin, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.